The chat is here for you to use. So obviously to support one another, but also to just ask questions, keep the conversation rolling. I will be checking it. So we will just wait a little bit more for people to pop on in. How's everybody doing? I know I can't see you, but are we doing great? Are we doing okay? Feel free to type into the chat how you're doing. Okay, I'm good. I'm good, Lucy. Thank you for asking. I hope you're hanging in more than just good too. I hope it's like awesome. All right, we'll give it like another minute and then we could start. Beautiful. You know, Joy and Tracy, if you want me to like hold off for a second, just feel free to let me know before I jump on in. Cool. I'm going to start. And whoever pops in later can or will. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for your time. I hope that tonight you are going to leave here with as much understanding of auditioning as possible. So as I said, as you came in, please use this chat. Do not be shy. No questions are off limit. If you are curious about something, whether it's on the professional end or more of like a community theater end, like there is no silly question whatsoever. Ask what you need to get out of it. I also say with that, like take the notes that you need to take. Feel free to leave what doesn't serve you and take what does. This is an opportunity for you to get as much out of it as possible. So with that, we will begin. So interesting. Welcome, I am Jennifer Apple. I am currently regular liberal arts degree, but then I have a master's degree in acting from the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. This past year, traveling around the country, so it's possible that if y'all live elsewhere, you might have seen the show come through your city, or we were maybe supposed to come through your city, and unfortunately we did not. So that in itself was a crazy adventure, my first time touring. And prior to that, I'd been doing a lot more regional theater. So I was traveling around the country and doing specific shows at different theaters around the country, mostly musicals. I have been on New Amsterdam, the TV show, if you watch that show. And I've also done a bunch of smaller little films. For me, the art of auditioning is something that is still growing, especially now in the pandemic as things are shifting and changing and morphing in the industry itself. It's a really interesting time to talk about auditioning because I think auditioning the way that we used to know pre-pandemic is potentially very different from what we know post-pandemic. I will talk about stuff in terms of auditioning in general. I'm going to share my screen for some handy little tips and sites that I might recommend for you to have in your back pocket in case you weren't aware of them. But as I mentioned at the beginning, please use this chat to ask me anything and all the things that you are this past year. So with that said, we will jump right on in. In terms of auditioning, let's just talk about what that is, right? It is, you have either an opportunity to go in for a specific role, for a specific show, or you have an opportunity to go in front of, say, a casting director, right? Somebody who would cast the show, right? Or sometimes it's just in front of what they would call the team, right? A director or a producer or a music director, people who are a part of putting the show on, right? You have an opportunity in these auditions to go and show yourself. Sometimes you are given material beforehand that they're like, hey, this is the part you're going in for. Let us give you this song, or let us give you this scene. go on and do your thing with this material. And anybody who is auditioning for that part will have access to what they would call sides, the material for that specific part. Then there are the auditions of you get to kind of do and go in with what you want, right? So let's say you are going in for Legally Blonde, right? And you're going to sing, they say, come in and bring a song of your choice. Then that is really an opportunity for you to decide what it is that you do best, that you want to share with the team, with whoever you're auditioning for, right? These are two different audition styles, but they kind of all should be using the same set of tools, right? So if you are a singer and you are an actor, or you are a dancer, or you do all of them, honestly, the rules are the same. What should be happening in the audition? You show up. I know if you've been to any of the chats beforehand, I would imagine if you've trained any of the incredible mentors and Broadway mentors, I imagine they all say similar, which is like, you need to show up. We need to learn about you and what makes you incredible. So that is whether you're doing sides, material that they've asked you to prepare, or you're doing your own stuff. Why is that important? And it might sound woo-woo, but there is literally no one in the entire universe who is you, right? And here's the thing, when you are auditioning, right, what is the point of auditioning? The point of auditioning is because there is usually a role that needs to be filled. This is a problem that needs to be solved. You are the potential puzzle piece for this puzzle, right? They're calling you in. You have this audition because they believe that you are potentially the puzzle piece to fill their puzzle. And if you rob them of the opportunity to see you, to have you come in and show them what makes you, you and incredible, then you've actually stolen an opportunity for not only yourself to get this part, but for them to fill their puzzle, right? So when we talk about, what do you mean, well, bring yourself to the audition? It's like very abstract, right? Obviously, we're talking about your skill set, right? So if you're a singer, being able to sing your song well, whatever that means. If you're an actor, being able to act your monologue really well. If you're both singing and acting the song, right? All these things, it's important to see the technical side of it, but it's even more important for you to have a point of view, for you to know who you're talking to, for you to connect to this song, connect to the material from a point of honesty for yourself. How do we do that? Well, first, we have to get really specific with the work that we do with the text that we have, right? So if it's a material that you know, a song that you've chosen, decide who you're singing to, decide why you've chosen this song. Why is this song important to you right now, in this moment, right? Why do you need to sing these words and tell this story right now? What is the urgency behind that, right? If it's material that they've given you, obviously this isn't something that you chose initially because you love. So now, no matter, how do I see myself in this? How do I part of me out into this part, right? That's about, if it mentions a character in the scene, that's like talking about Rebecca. Well, who's Rebecca to you, right? Where are you? Are you in your living room? Or are you in the bar, right? Getting really specific and clear about the material for yourself. And we're talking about like you showing up and walking in with confidence to not feel like you have to apologize for anything about yourself ever. I mean that like that's like a life rule, right? Like own who you are, but genuinely in an audition space, again, going back to you are the answer to their problems, like also you owe it to yourself to show up and walk into a room and be like, this is me. And here's the thing, if it doesn't work out, it's like literally not personal at all. A lot of the reasons people don't get parts have nothing to do with them being right or wrong. You might remind them of somebody's ex-wife, I think about, with me and the band's visit, for example, I was in, just for context of how this is true, I was called in initially for the band's visit Broadway to be a female standby on the Broadway stage, right? So what that means is I would cover all the female roles in the show. I wouldn't be on the stage every night, but if anybody popped off the stage, like there I went for any of the roles. I went through all the like stages of auditions and callbacks, and my journey ironically ended with roller skating, which is what I ended up doing on tour. My track was a roller skater, but I didn't get the part. I didn't get the Broadway track. Um, right? But B, like I wasn't the answer to the problem at the time, right? Somebody else fit the role, fit the description, fit what they needed at that moment better than I did, right? And how do I know that? They called me in a couple of weeks later for the tour, which is exactly what happened. And then so for me, it's like, oh, right, I wasn't right for Broadway. They wanted me for tour, right? Sometimes it's about being patient and trusting that if you don't book that job, you have booked what we call the room, right? If you don't book that job, if I didn't book the band's visit, anybody behind that table, the casting director, the director, choreographer, music director, they all saw me work. They all saw the work that I put in. If it wasn't for this show, they would potentially remember me for another show and call me in then. So I urge you, when it comes to these auditions, for whatever scope you are auditioning for, to not think about it as this be all end all. If I don't get this job, think about it as booking the room. Let these people in this room learn about who you are, how you work, how you operate, how you prepare, how you show up, how much you are willing to collaborate with them. That's the thing that they're going to remember about you, right? Also, when it comes to these shows, right, you're spending how much time with these people in rehearsal? A lot. And then if you're doing a show that runs for some time, right, you're going to be spending even more time with these people off stage. That's many, many hours. And I don't know about you, but when I think about the people that I'm spending time with, I want to like them as a human before I even think about them in the performance lens, right? So think about that for yourself, right? Like when you walk into a room, are you showing up as a human being that they want to work with, that they want to spend time with, over the fact that you can sing a high G, which sure, sometimes that's necessary, but I can tell you from experience that sometimes the people that book the role, they move the songs down keys because they're a better person that they wanted to work with. And it wasn't like, the music didn't run the show. The person did. And that for me is a huge takeaway with auditions. Now, let's talk about like auditions, technically speaking, right? So we talked kind of about the different types. And again, please feel free to use the chat, because like right now I'm just like, spilling information and I'm not sure what's resonating or what's not with you. So if you have questions as I'm sharing, be like, hey, Jen, stop this for a second. Can you elaborate on this? Or, hey, this doesn't sound clear to me. Or, hey, I agree with you. Please feel free to use the chat so I feel like this is a conversation that I'm having with you and not just talking and lecturing at you, because that's the way I love to interact. Lucy knows that. Lucia knows that. A few people on here who know me, they know that hi, nice to see you. There's a few people in here who know how I work, right? So feel free to keep this chat going. Hi, Lucia, nice to see you. Beautiful. So that's like the abstract version of auditions, right? Technically speaking, we kind of broke down like these are the ways in which you would make this personal to you. I want to talk about like how one would find auditions, right, in the world. The concept of booking the room. Yes. I don't know if you answered before. What advice do you have for the audition? Lucy, can you elaborate on that? What advice do you have for auditioning? Do you mean just like in general? Elaborate on that. And Angelica, yes, right? This idea of booking the room for me it's a total mental shift, right? Because then it doesn't hold this weight of, if I don't book this job, then what? It's like, no. Then let's take it a step back. If I booked this room, then I know more often than not that I've become a human, because I'm trying to relate to the people in the room versus the job that's this abstract thing that we think we know what they want, and it's like we don't, right? I definitely, like, if that feels right to you, think about, booking the room. Like in general. Okay, so Lucia asks the question, what advice do you have for auditioning? So I think there's a few. Again, it's like, be yourself, you as a person to show up, right? I think the other part of it is, and for anybody who's taking class with me beforehand, it's about really grounding yourself, right? And finding out where you are, frankly, emotionally on that day, in that moment, right? Because sometimes we think about these things conceptually of like, okay, cool, I've practiced this on my own. I've sung the song in my shower. I've, done all my prep work on my monologue. I've done all the work. And then all of a sudden we show up at the day of and we're sitting in a holding room, which, I mean, obviously now we're not because we're in a pandemic, but prior to that, right, we're sitting in a holding room with a bunch of other people, and all that energy of people who want the job or like need it, or anxiety or all of that, to sit in that space with a bunch of other people is hard, right? Because it's hard to like stay focused on where you are. And I encourage you and invite you to begin, especially in this pandemic, to begin fostering the idea of really acknowledging where you are. I don't mean like physically in space, though that's important. I mean emotionally, right? Whether that's a matter of taking a moment of a little bit of mindfulness and breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, right? Like even just now, and I see all these questions, I will get to you. Like even just now, and I know I don't see any of you, so you can do this or not, but like if you just take a moment, right? And you just shut your eyes and you can put a hand on your heart center or a hand on your belly. And you just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. We just did that a few times. And again, you could be doing this on your own or not. I invite you to join me. Already in this, I feel below both of my hands where I'm at, right? Like these parts of us, especially your diaphragm, belly, gut area, and your chest, if you even just bring a hand here, I don't know science necessarily, but there is something that literally scientifically will share with you, like, oh, I'm anxious. Oh, I'm feeling nervous. Oh, I'm excited. Oh, I'm this. Once you acknowledge where you are emotionally, are you then able to move through it, right? If we pushed, let's say I'm nervous and I show up to this audition and I'm like, okay, I'm so nervous. Okay, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. That nerves, they're just going to get pushed down and everything else is going to sit on top of that nerves. And so anything that's sitting above it isn't going to really be able to flourish because there's something that's pushing to keep trying to come up, right? Whereas if I'm like, cool, I'm nervous, really nervous. Oh boy, whew, right? Take a moment, be with your nerves, invite some breath into that space, like into the nerves, just saying, cool, I'm with you. I know this seems so woo-woo, but it actually works, scientifically proven, it's mindfulness. Like invite the breath into the nerves, be like, I'm with you, I hear you, I see you, well, we're in this together. And if you bring the nerves in with you, I honestly would be willing to bet like 98% accuracy, not money at the moment, but 98% accuracy that your nerves will move through you and the next emotion will come. It's like, think about it. How many times have you ever laughed or you've cried? And when you've cried, you've also laughed, and then you've laughed, and then they're all the same, right? Emotions are fluid. We could feel one thing and also feel another thing and then immediately go back to the other. And if we're pushing these things away, they'll find a way to creep out into your performance and into your body in a way that you didn't need, and it won't serve you. So those are my two things, Lucia. Hopefully that answered your question. Rebecca, how do you find auditions and to ensure they're reputable? Amazing that you asked that, because I will use that as my segue to show you and share with you my screen. And let me just read Grant's question. How would you answer, tell us about yourself during an audition, or what should you talk about if they ask you for this for a self-tape and it's 40 seconds max? This is where Rebecca, I'm going to come back to you because that's literally the next part of this. Grant, that's an incredible question. How do you tell us about yourself? This is where you get to talk about yourself as a human being, right? Like, what if you were to hang out with this person behind the casting table, what would you want to do with them? Hey, friend, you know what? I love to hike. This is me. I love to hike. So any chance that I have to be outdoors, I love that. I love being able to climb up a mountain, sweat, see a view, love a view. I love dogs. Like obsessed with dogs, like unhealthily so, just talking about you as a person. Why is that important? Because once you start to talk about the things that you love or the things that excite you, they're going to learn more about you, frankly, than they would from the material that you're going to prepare. Because you end up like a part of you that is excited and full of life and joy about the things that you love is naturally it has to come out. Like when I talk about hiking, I get excited. When I talk about dogs, I get weird. Like it's just who I am. Like already I'm seeing my like arms move a lot more, right? So don't rob yourself of an opportunity to just really think about what you love and your hobbies. Be like, I'm a bookworm. I love reading Star Wars. I don't, I've never read them. I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody. Okay. Like that's something to really think about how you can share parts of who you are. And hopefully that answered your question, Grant. See, what suggestions do you have for finding the right material for your rep and for auditioning? Good, I'm glad that helped. Let's circle back to that. See, I see you, and I will come back to that. So I'm going to go back to Rebecca's question of how do you find auditions? So I kind of mentioned this in the beginning, right? Auditioning, it depends on the sphere that you're talking about. And auditions are auditions are auditions. You, again, should show up no matter where or what you're auditioning for. When it comes to, say, professional auditions, it may be a little bit of a different market situation in that, you know, if you had your local community theater and they were auditioning, it's just you go to their community theater webpage and they tell you what they're auditioning and what you need to prepare. For professional auditions, it's a little bit different just because there's so many different angles of that, right? We're talking about if you are non-union, as in if you aren't part of Actors Equity, right? You're not part of the Actors Union. Then there are some regional theaters that are non-union. If you are part of Equity or Actors Equity of a union show, then there are those auditions, right? If you are on camera and you want to do more TV and film stuff, there's a different way to find those auditions. So there's a bunch of different lanes to like find these auditions. I will show you a few that might be helpful for you to have in your back pocket, many of which are free or just like an annual fee, and I'll break those down for you. So let me share with you my screen. And some of you might know these and some of you might not. Playbill.com. It's an incredible resource. In general, it has like all the information you might want to have in terms of actual top stories in the industry. So it's helpful for you to just stay up to date on it. However, Playbill.com also has jobs. Right now in the pandemic, I'm going to preface this and say all of these platforms may not have as many as they would pre-pandemic. But with that said, these platforms aren't going anywhere as far as I'm concerned. So this is helpful to find. On the left side, the little burger, you scroll down, you see jobs. Cool, you click that. And it takes you to latest theater jobs. You can get specific, right? So if you want to find something that's just performer based, you would just click performer, right? If you want to see if it's paid or unpaid, you can get specific with that. If you aren't local to a specific state, or I guess Abu Dhabi, you know, you could put your state there specifically. If it doesn't necessarily matter, because sometimes with, as Grant mentioned, self-tapes, like you might want to just keep it open. Union or non-union, right? This is what we were talking about earlier. If you are part of Actors Equity or if you are not, sometimes it's helpful to see both just because you never know. If you are non-union and eventually you want to become union, can't hurt to audition for a union show and potentially have that as the way in which you become part of the union, okay? And then intern or regular, that basically is, you know, are you interning for this thing or are you just a human? I would definitely not necessarily click this one because it doesn't really help you unless you're trying to intern for something. So we're just going to do this for now, just with nothing, no filters, okay? And you'll see, here's an interview opportunity for future NYC performers, a facility manager, operations and facility assistants, oh, a teacher, teens for Bear Pop Opera in Massapequa, right? Oh my God, Theory of Relativity. I was in the original cast of this. That's so great, I love that. This is a site that is totally free, okay? Let's just, because we can, let's look at this one. We'll open it up. So usually what it'll have is a description of the title, who it's for, what the theater company is or where it is, the person's contact, the description of either the show or what they're looking for. These are taking place via Zoom. First rehearsal is on this. Email here. Sometimes they don't give the email information and sometimes it just says, you know, send email to here and it's a bunch of jargon. Sometimes it's apply online. Great. This is pretty self-explanatory, this one, right? All roles are open. This is the commitment, okay? So playbill.com is super easy. It's totally free. And again, you can get specific with where you are location-wise, okay? That's A. B, some of you might have heard backstage.com. Backstage, in order for you to have a profile, you need to pay an annual fee. I forget exactly what it is. However, you are able to potentially browse their various castings, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to apply to the castings unless you had a profile. So for example, let's just go into theater. If my internet decides to load, great. And again, it's a similar thing, right? Where you get to kind of fill in what you're looking for, or you can keep it kind of blank, okay? And then you would search your situation and you would see what would pop up. Obviously, the more specific you get, I would imagine the less of option you have. But this is something, you know, that you were able to search 556 acting jobs, 21 productions in all locations, which frankly speaking is a lot less just because we're in pandemic era. But backstage.com, okay, playbill.com tends to be a little bit more theater based. Backstage.com has a few more student films, a little bit more of like modeling, voiceover, like on the beginner scale of things. So if this is something that you're thinking of in terms of getting involved, it might be a way for you to just like easily get your foot in the door or start, you know, experimenting and submitting yourself with this for Backstage. But again, with Backstage, you need to have a profile in order to use it in terms of submission. Okay, that is similar to Actors Access. So I have an account with Actors Access. Let me just go to the main page of that. Maybe this is the main page. Great. Actors Access is also, if you pay for Actors Access, which is a paid thing, you also get what's called Showfax. Showfax is another website in which you could pretty much find sides, as in material, from specific projects. So from Broadway shows, tours, TV and film. Showfax is like a sister package with Actors Access. What is this? What's Breakdown Services? Breakdown Services is what agents and managers use for submitting their clients. If you are represented, it actually might behoove you to ask your representation, like, hey, out of curiosity, I would love to see, like, you know, my pitch on Breakdown and see what you've done for me. But for those of us unrepresented without representation, you could have a profile. Let me just see. Try not to like show you all everything here. No, okay, here we go. So let me see if you could, I think you can't yet. Let me just share this. Share my other screen. Great. So this is my profile. You don't necessarily need to know all my information, but like my size card, my resume, this is like how my resume would read. Okay. You can put it like this, you know, depending on your categories, you can arrange it like that. Here's my training, readings, workshops, all of that. They also have a whole thing of like the special skills that you could do. And anytime there's a breakdown, they might, if they have these types of things in there, they could potentially pitch it to you. Okay. Actors Access, I have found to be a mix of theater, voiceover, on camera, background. It's kind of a mix of a bunch of stuff. I have personally booked jobs off of Actors Access, which is why I have an account with them. But again, you would do your resume, you can upload photos, or you can also upload a potential like film clip. This is another one to submit yourself. So it's a sister organization in essence to Breakdown Express, which is what agents and managers use. Okay. Then we have casting networks. That's another one. This tends to be a little bit more, I say, on like commercials and reality TV and TV. They definitely have a lot of articles in here as well. You could see different talent representation. It's worth looking through and like seeing the various agencies. If I remember clearly, you also need to have an actual membership in order to submit yourself. But this is another one that basic membership, $25 per year. And again, I don't work for any of these, so I'm not trying to make you submit yourself for any, but I'm just trying to share the wealth. Another one is central casting. This also tends to be, you can pick your location or the nearest office and focus on that. And they will have, they have different types of submissions that they have as well, the types of jobs. background jobs. I know that this one's a lot of background, and the talent you can kind of search in that inside of it if you wanted to. Okay, how to get whatever. This is another site. And then just in terms of material and finding material, I know people ask this all the time. You're like, how do you find monologues? This is something that I actually specialize in, like finding monologues for people. That is one of my specialties. But I usually, these are some of the sites that I send people on when they're looking for new material. The Kilroys are incredible. Every year they have a list, and it's all female plays that you can either view it as a timeline, which is much prettier, but that all came out in the order of the year, that are like much to watch shows in terms of the ones that were around, like Actors Theater of Louisville. These are the various cities that they opened at, but these are new female playwrights. Then there's the new play exchange. I believe it's like $10 a year, and you have access to this many scripts by this many writers, a lot of new work, pretty much exclusively new work, and a lot of them are easily downloadable from the website itself. So for $10, this is an incredible investment, especially if you want to have work that no one else is doing, and if you want to keep up with new playwrights, lyricists, composers, directors, dramaturgs, all of that. It's a really incredible, like $12 a year for a writer. For a reader, it's $10 a year. And you search, download, it's incredible. I have my new play exchange. I love it. And then this is another website. It's a magazine. It's called American Theater Magazine. And it is all about the American theater, but they have a specific page that's all about the various plays that are either published or featured, and some of which are downloadable. Click hyperlink to read the accompanying interviews, but also respective plays. So those are some of my little tricks in the audition sphere. I hope that answers your question, Rebecca, of some reputable places. And then C, in terms of, again, like I think this might have answered it a little bit in terms of finding the material, I would encourage you to do your research. I also really encourage like spirals, right? So like you read a play that you love, then you see who the playwright is. Then you read everything else that the playwright has done. Then you see where that playwright has been published or produced. I imagine whoever produces that playwright's work is also going to be doing that interesting type of work that that playwright does. See what else that those theaters have produced. Read those plays. Just go down the little, pipeline of curiosity, of knowledge, and it is your industry. The more you know, the more you're able to show up, right? So I would encourage you to get curious and read a lot. And then in terms of your your representation, saying yay or nay to that, I think that is a conversation you all would need to have together. I believe first and foremost that you need to love your material, because again, why? You need to show up empowered to do that material yourself. If you are not loving your material and you're doing it because somebody told you to, you won't fully show up, and then everyone has lost, right? Okay, so new playwrights, new play exchange is great. Yep, Angelica's like, yep, on it. So fab, are you going so fast? Oh, I'm going too fast? I'm so sorry. Do you need me to repeat anything, Deanna? I'm trying to like get it all in and also leave time for Q&A, because this is unfortunately a free little webinar. However, I work with Broadway mentors. If this is something that you want more information on that's specifically for you, let's schedule a one-on-one, girl, and I can like make this happen and we can like get specific for you. That is what I do with them. But yes, we are recording. I don't know what the access to the replay is, unfortunately. I'm sorry. What are points to hit with good material? Says Lucy. Points to hit. Be yourself. I know I keep saying it and I'm going to sound like a broken record. And when I coach one-on-one, of which, some of you who have worked with me beforehand, you've seen this. The way I coach is truly about bringing you to the piece. I think that needs to be first and foremost the thing that you are doing. It should be the thing that you're most curious about. How can you fully show up in all these different characters, right? Like what parts of yourself are you able to bring to all these different roles? That's the exciting part of being an actor. I don't believe, let me rephrase, the compelling actors in my life, or the people who I admire most in the industry, are those actors who transform from themselves. Like Meryl Streep. I know Meryl Streep is still Meryl Streep in Kramer versus Kramer and The Devil Wears Prada. But my Lord, is she completely different in both of those things. But for me, it's still Meryl Streep doing both of those shows, both of those movies, right? Why is that important? Because Meryl transforms into these characters. Meryl is not trying to be someone else. Meryl uses parts of her to bring these characters alive. That's why you tune into what Meryl Streep is doing, because what is Meryl Streep going to be this time, right? That is the transformation that I love and encourage in actors. How do you bring parts of yourself to life through the words of a playwright, through this particular lens, right? So that you show up. Because again, the important thing is to see you. I need to, look, I teach this another class that's, you know, like cold read for actors, right? We have many people do the same reading of the same piece, and everything happens every single time. It's a different piece, because why? Different people are reading the text differently by bringing parts of themselves to the piece. But the text is exactly the same. That is the gorgeousness of what we do as actors, right? We need to bring parts of ourselves to the role, because then I learn how you as a human being would approach this material. That's like the main thing, Lucy. And then the other part is obviously the technical stuff, right? Which is, again, what I do when I, especially one-on-one, is getting really specific for yourself. Like, who are you talking to? Where are you? Why now? What is your objective? You know, like all of the acting 101 stuff, you also need to have done that work for yourself. Let me see. Maybe Broadway mentors send out emails with a list of those resources. Unclear, I could ask. Or I can just, you know, tell you them slowly right now. I will do that right now, Melissa, okay? Super, super slowly. You have playbill.com. Playbill.com. Again, I don't work for any of these organizations, so, you know, this is just some sites that I have used. Backstage.com. Again, that's one of the ones that you would have to have a profile, backstage.com. Then Actors Access, which is another one where you have to have your own username. Then you have castingnetworks.com. Hopefully this is helping you. Then you have centralcasting.com. Those are all the ones that I shared in terms of auditions. And then in terms of some of the new work or monologue lists that I've shared is the Kilroys with a K, the Kilroys. Those are for the new plays. And again, those list back for many years. American Theater Magazine, of which you can subscribe to and get the physical magazine copy, or it's online, American Theater Magazine. And then the other one is New Play Exchange. That's the one I really, really recommend if you are going to invest in like a new paid thing for $10 a year. It's less than $1 a month. It's really, really worth your time. What advice you wish you knew about this industry before you were in it? What advice do I wish I knew? It's so funny. I just launched a program that is literally about this. But I wish I knew when I was younger that I was not invincible. That my voice, that my body, that my mental health, they all need to be taken care of. You know, when people tell you to stretch or do warm-ups, do them. Your body will change and you will become potentially more ailed the more you use your beautiful body to do many things, right? Us artists do so much on like microscopic levels, right? Like even just raising an eyebrow is a muscle, right? So we need to really foster those muscles and take care of them. So that would be a huge one of like really finding ways for you to self-care early. Like find lovely things that fill your heart with joy and your mind with ease and your breath with like levity. I really encourage everyone, especially those who I coach, to find that for themselves, because how are we supposed to share stories about the human experience? That's what we do as artists, right? We're storytellers. How are we supposed to be humans if we're not taking care of our human selves? I mean that very seriously too, right? Sorry if you hear the dog, or many dogs. Again, I love dogs. How are we supposed to tell these stories if us humans are not able to be present? So that's definitely something I would recommend for young artists. And also just really, you are important. You should show up in the room. Stop trying to compare leads to despair. Like put that in big bolds. Compare leads to despair. If you look at another person and their journey and compare yourself to that, you will never ever find happiness, which frankly is why we do this, right? To feel joy and love for what we do. Your journey is not their journey. Literally no actor has had the same journey. It's a strange career like that. Every single journey is valuable and gorgeous and interesting and its own. So do not compare yourself to other people. Focus on what you love, what you bring to the room, what you bring to the table, and really, really harness those parts of yourself and find joy and in that, and also forgiveness for all the things that you will stumble upon on your way. That's the beauty of discovering yourself as an artist. Let me see. I feel like I'm missing some other. What coaching services do you offer, Lucy? This is really great. I am so excited to be working with Broadway Mentors program. I don't know who has worked with people in this mentorship experience, but like I on my own am like beautifully intimidated by the list that I am a part of. These mentors are like mind-blowingly generous and gorgeous and incredible artists, let alone people. Everyone offers a variety of different things. For myself, I do one-on-ones. It's what I love to do, especially in this framework. Really bringing out what makes you, you, really getting specific about your journey, what you need with the pieces that you are working on, or finding pieces that you want to work on and make yours, right? So one-on-one with me is something that I completely do with Broadway Mentors program. Hopefully we will also be coming out with some sort of master classes, depending on, what we've come up with together, or feedback from all of you of like, hey, would love Jen to teach this type of thing. Like, are you open to that? I would encourage you to keep, Joy in the loop with that, because they listen. That's why I'm here today for this, free master class, just because they're a really giving organization in that way. Oh, I see that Joy listed that, study one-on-one. Beautiful. Yeah, I can actually put my own little name over here too. There we go. That should be a link. Oh, but she's saying study with stars. Ooh, let me see. Did I do that? Yes. Or here's the study with stars link. So you have that as well here. Other questions that I know I went quickly. Melissa, did I answer that for you? I tried to like reiterate certain things, like the websites. So let me know if you've received that. What do you wear? Love that. Christina, that's a great question. You will have many people tell you many different things. I'm of the opinion, especially now with this pandemic, that you wear what you want to wear. I'm sitting here in a sweatshirt chatting with all of you. Not because I don't care to put in anything nice, but because I feel like it's important for us to be people with each other, right? That for me, again, is like how I lead in my life when it comes to being an artist, and especially when it comes to being in audition spaces. something that you are comfortable in, something that you feel you could move in, something that you don't have to think about. If you are wearing a pair of heels, that you have to think about how you walk in the pair of heels, those heels are not serving you, take them off. If you are somebody who like needs to be in a flat shoe, wear a flat shoe, invest in a cool flat shoe that you are excited about wearing, right? Clothing is another opportunity for us to showcase who we are, right? If you're somebody who's vibrant and you love patterns and like that gets you excited, and you, when you put on a patterned shirt, you like walk into a room with like your chest held high and are super confident, you should be wearing more patterns because you're going to show up and feel awesome about yourself, right? Like I know people say like wear jewel tone dresses and nude shoes. Don't. Wear something that you want to wear. I'm the person that wears pants pretty much exclusively. I love a good pair of jeans. Like I'm all about jeans. And sure, there are parts, right, that you need to maybe dress a little bit more conservatively, or it's more of like a classical show versus a contemporary show. So I wouldn't wear jeans to like Music Man necessarily, but I might, right? I think about a lot of the auditions that I auditioned, like I wore jeans to, you know, the band's visit, like live my best little life, you know. Most of the auditions that I think I was successful in, I was wearing comfortable clothing, as in clothing that I felt awesome in, that I didn't think about what other people would do to judge me. And again, this is particular to each individual. If you're a fashionista, I'm not, but if you're a fashionista and you like really love to express yourself, then use it as an opportunity, but also just recognize that there are certain rooms that just need to have a little bit more, you know, guidelines. And there, as the more you audition, the more you will also get to know specific people, right? And why is that important? You get to know what they like and what they don't like and what their pet peeves are. And some people don't necessarily have incredible imaginations. And so you kind of have to spoon feed them a little bit with what you look like to be like, see, I look like this. Now, I'm not suggesting that if you're going in for a doctor to wear scrubs, like not at all, right? But if you're going in for a lawyer, don't go in a party dress, right? Because then that's too confusing. But if you're going in for a lawyer, wear something that's a little bit more buttoned up, you know, but that might not be like a suit. That might be, you know, like a really cool pair of pants, like a cool boot and like a nice button down. Unclear, right? But think about the lane that you're trying to occupy for the type of role and dress for yourself with that in mind. Okay. Beautiful. Oh, good, Melissa. I'm happy that you got it. So that wall is broken down then. Elaborate on that, Christina, what you mean by that wall is broken down then. While I go over here, in terms of self-care, do you have any suggested resources that we can go to if we want to discover and practice more of this, but not quite sure where to start or what's right for us? Yeah, again, self-care needs to be like your own figure. Like self-care means a lot of different things for different people, right? Self-care for me means going on a hike. Self-care for somebody else might mean taking a bath. Some self-care for somebody else might mean meditating. So learning what self-care is for you is important, right? If you are interested in, say, like mindfulness, that is something that I teach. Like I teach, you know, like you've worked with me, like the body scan, I do like a full hour of that. Like that is considered self-care, mindfulness. That's something I could do one-on-one with you to find your version of what that is. But you know, there are certain, like Calm is an app that you can have, or Headspace, right? Those are meditation apps, but they have these types of mindfulness practices that if that's something that you're curious about, it can't hurt to look into that. Angelica, do you think non-union performers should submit for virtual equity auditions the same way we would do it in person? Here's my thoughts, and it might not be everyone's thoughts. I support, let me rewind. We work for ourselves. We are our own advocates. Even if we have a manager, even if we have an agent, we are the ones still hustling the most for ourselves. That's why this is hard, but it's also why it's kind of cool, because you lead your ship, right? And if you are interested in being seen for these equity auditions, I don't know why you wouldn't submit for yourself. I was doing that before I became Equity. And I mean, I booked Fiddler on the Roof at Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival. It's an Equity house, solely because I cold emailed and said, I'm right for Fiddler on the Roof. Hello. Here's a video of me doing the material. Let me know. And I booked it via video by reaching out. I also booked a production of Spamalot by doing the exact same thing. So what I'm saying is, yes, granted, I don't know everybody else. You know, other people have different opinions, other people, but I'm of the opinion that it's a no is a yes until it's a no, right? Like until somebody explicitly says, no, thank you, or please never speak to me again, they haven't said no, right? And for all you know, you are the missing puzzle piece to the puzzle that they're trying to build. And if anything, you're not sharing yourself if you are right for the show or right for the role. Like, I'm not saying to submit yourself willy-nilly because you just want to be in a show. I think you need to be specific about it so that your letter or your point of reach out is like, hey, this is the show, this is why I'm right? Like as in a cover letter. Then it's not arbitrary, it's specific. But why not? And again, that's only my opinion, so do not quote me on that. Other people view differently, but I have had it work where I preemptively reached out to things and places that I maybe shouldn't have, in quotations, by whatever unofficial list or rules that people have unofficially made, and I've booked jobs from that. So take from that what you need, I guess. Cool, I'm glad that helped. So going back to Christina, there was just a certain look that you had to have when I was in my 20s. I always just wanted to be myself. Well, you know what? Give all that up. Forgive your 20s version of yourself. Now is your best life. Look and dress exactly how you want. It's possible that the industry has changed in that way, or that people are just simply challenging the industry, right? I think we are at an interesting place, and this is kind of, I have to wrap up, unfortunately, soon. So ask me any questions that you have last minute. But I think with this pandemic and trying to pivot this conversation into that for a second, which, Christina, this is a great point, is the industry that we are a part of is, I believe, rightfully going through a transition during this pandemic, this moment of pause. There are a lot of things that need to be shifted. There are a lot of things that need to be challenged. There's a lot of individuals and inclusion and diversity and equity that is lacking across the board in our industry. And with this intermission, with this pause, there have been many individuals and organizations who are taking it upon themselves to reflect and to acknowledge that perhaps they weren't being as inclusive or as interested in human beings showing up in the room as they should have, and dismissing people for X, Y, and Z reasons. It's a scary thing because the industry is uncertain in that way, but the beauty of it is, frankly, if and when we hopefully reopen, and hopefully all these organizations and individuals have spent time shifting and changing and learning the ways in which we are able to audition, the ways in which we're able to show up, the transparency to, for example, reach out to a union house to audition. These things hopefully should be more accessible because transparency should be key. That's something that I'm hoping for with this shift into this industry, this new industry, right? Where we all get to really show up as humans, and that is enough. Every single person is enough, more than enough. And every single person is seen for who they are and loved for who they are and honored for who they are. And so, yeah, with that, I think dress how you want to dress. And if it's not right for them, then that is their loss, right? Again, it goes to the booking the room. Like, if you showed up and you did your work and you were a human being and you were proud of the work that you did and you looked like yourself and felt like yourself and did you, then that's enough. One more question. C, thoughts about auditioning with self-written monologues, pieces from monologue books or monologues from TV film, as opposed to using ones from a play. I've heard different people say different things about this and how we should only go to monologues from published play, only audition. I don't care. One of the monologue that I auditioned, this is, again, breaking rules, but you're talking to me here. I auditioned for the casting director for New Amsterdam, the TV series, it was kind of like an open call situation. There were 3 casting directors in each room. They were asking for scenes. I didn't want to do a scene. I didn't do a scene. I came in and I did a comedic monologue, which was not from a play. It's from like a standalone comedian's piece. I love it. I do it often. And he called me in the following week for New Amsterdam. They were asking for scenes, which would have been published plays. And I would imagine if they weren't asking for scenes, they would have asked for monologues from published plays. I'm not telling you this to say like, you know, do it to like break the system for the sake of breaking the system. But what I am trying to say is finding material that you resonate with, that makes your heart happy, that you get excited to do in a room I don't want to use this word, but should override doing material from a published play because somebody told you to. This needs to be about you showing up in the room. And how do you most empower yourself to do that, right? By giving yourself all these, what you wear, the material that you pick, the, you know, power poses you do beforehand. These are the ways in which you can show up. Okay. I feel like we have like 2 minutes left. Thank you. I'm going to wrap up. Thank you all so very much for coming, for sharing your time with me tonight. I'm sad I couldn't see all your little faces. I hope mine wasn't too overwhelming to be staring at for an hour. But I want to reiterate, and Joy put it down here in the chat. The one-on-one situation is where we get to thrive together, right? Where I get to really learn about you and bring out you and help you succeed in the material that you are doing. And that can range from monologues to songs to scenes to like, let's find it together, to simply like, hey, I need to confidence build. Let's do that, right? And if there are other master classes that you are interested in me potentially teaching, share that with Joy as she and I percolate on things that we will bring in a masterclass form. But until that point, the link is over here in the chat to work with me one-on-one. I wish you all good luck with your auditions. Truly the most important thing is to be yourself. Thank you all for coming. I guess this will be it.
Thank you, Jennifer. This is Joy. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. It was so inspiring. And I have my notebook here and I've been writing everything down as well. And thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar, and hope you will join us for the program. We're very, very proud of it. And we're all coming from our hearts to get to know you. And it really is about you, right? And we're passing our torch here. That's all we're doing.
No, we were able to do this because of what you foster in your programming. And I think that's really wonderful. So I'm grateful for it.
Oh, my daughter and I feel very, very honored to be able to be the instrument for this, and getting to know so many wonderful, wonderful people over the past year. So thank you again, Jennifer. And if anybody would like to reach me with any questions, you can email me at joy@BroadwayMentorsProgram.com. I'm the executive director. I'll be happy to answer any questions for you. And everybody, please stay safe, stay well, and maybe get a flu shot. Just thinking, I don't know. I'm going with
You're on point. Yep.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Jennifer. Bye-bye.